welcome, Hoosier fans, to this week's edition of Assembly Call Radio, where each week we discuss the most interesting topics in the world of Indiana basketball. This is our 166th edition of Assembly Call Radio, and it is our 617th episode overall of the Assembly Call, recorded on the evening of Thursday, April 23rd, 2020. I'm your host, Andy Bottoms, and let's begin this edition of the Assembly Call how we begin every edition of the Assembly Call, and that is with our Hoosier Proud Banner moment. And for me, there really wasn't a lot of IU news at all this week, as would be evidence if people had access to our discussion of what we were going to cover on tonight's show. But we did get a little bit of IU news today that we'll hit later. But instead of focusing on something IU related, I wanted to just focus on some other good things that are going on. I think in these times, it's easy to focus a lot on things that aren't going well and the frustration that comes from not being able to do the things that we all would like to be able to do, who have become accustomed to be able to do. And like all of us, we have our good days and bad here and there. And this week's had a couple of long days for us here between schoolwork and cancellation of school and just different things going on. So I figured good time as any to focus on a few good things that have kind of cropped up either on my social media or other things lately. The first of which kind of in my own house. There's a lot of stuff that different educators are doing right now. I'm sure Coach could attest to this and be able to try to do things differently, reach students differently, just check up on students that they haven't heard from. And so as I sit upstairs and work, I can hear my wife downstairs recording herself to try to teach lessons. She's taught herself so much new technology in the last couple weeks, probably more than she ever thought she'd need to be able to teach her kids. And then this week she started having smaller groups in her Google Meet sessions with them. And it's just awesome to hear her excitement to be able to see them. There was a couple this week that she really hadn't heard much from, and just to hear her get excited and the kids be excited to hear from her. Some of them wanted to read her a book. Some of them wanted her to read them a book. Some of them wanted to basically take her on a tour of their house, just different stuff like that. And it's one example, but a lot of educators are doing the same thing. And I'm proud of her and proud of everybody else who's trying to make this work as best they can when there's no playbook for how to actually do it. The second one is our friends at Home Field. For those who, we've obviously had a long-standing relationship with them and are proud to do so. But Connor, they came out this week. For those who are college football fans who go to the Banner Society site, they're a really fun college football site, and they had a group of folks who were furloughed for 3 months. So Connor, in less than a week, has put up a couple shirts and raised, I think at last count, over $35,000 that they'll be able to provide to those folks who are doing that. So just yet another reason why we're all proud to be associated with the fine folks at Home Field, and kudos to Connor for jumping on that, doing it quickly, and to any of our listeners who supported that. Thanks to you as well. And then today on Facebook, I had a story come across from Matt Blaska, who I know is a listener and does some stuff with Crimson Cast as well. It was basically a story about a nurse named Brooke Morris from Indianapolis. She basically volunteered to go. She's a traveling nurse, volunteered to go to New York for 8 weeks to help out. Kind of cool story. I think it was on CBS 4 in Indianapolis, and basically talked to her about why she felt compelled to do it and what she'd seen so far. And for somebody who's probably in a lot of negativity there, like her attitude that came through was really, really good, and seems to be someone who has a fair amount of a religious background. And so they asked her if she had a favorite phrase or Bible verse that she was living by, and she responded with "Be the light." So I thought those were good kind of words to live by, and hopefully things that we can all keep in mind during this time when we don't have IU basketball and it's not easy to find banner moments. You don't have to look too hard to find some other banner moments going around about people doing really selfless things and helping out. And it's one of those things that make difficult times seem a little bit better because you can be reminded so much of the good things that are out there and not the things that are frustrating or not the way that we would like. So I'll give that as my banner moment this week. We'll come back and we'll figure out an IU-related one for next week. But for now, a few examples. I'm sure everybody has those. So thank the people that you see that are going out and doing something above and beyond to go out and help other people. So with that, I will introduce my esteemed co-host for this week's show. Jared is off tonight, is probably obvious based on the facts I'm hosting. The potential is that for him to scour Cameo for the third time to see if any new IU players are on there. Maybe it's somebody with a nice accent. Maybe hearing Tijon say Gerard would be exciting, but who knows? Ryan is covering the NFL draft for the Big Lead, so make sure you follow along with his coverage of that. But here with me, to my left, is the coach, Brian Tonsoni, and one of the few drops that I do have is Coach's intro, so we'll play that now.
He remembers the days when a movie cost $1. Heaven help you if you ever decide to pop your collar. Play hard, but remember, fake hustle is a crime. He's the coach and it's Tonsoni time.
Coach, welcome tonight, and how you doing? What's on your mind this evening?
Well, really good opening segment, Andy. Kudos. We have a bunch of people in the IU family doing great things. You know, Buffalo's serving food. Joel and his wife, Julie, getting Indiana gear, and Purdue, unfortunately, Purdue gear out. But it's good masks and hats for our frontline workers. And again, to Home Field and everyone who's probably donated things. Chad sent out something about youth sports today, to look to help. And so one of the nice things about our community and this group of friends that we have supporting Indiana Hoosiers is our outreach, and everything is to be commended that way. Thinking a lot about player movement, from transfers to, well, we have the NFL draft going on right now for you football fans, and players are getting to pursue their dreams. And I just have to remind myself and maybe listeners out there as well that, you know, players make choices to come to programs for a lot of different reasons, and they choose to leave programs for a lot of reasons. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. We could have opinions on that. But ultimately, I tend to try to respect the decision. I have no problem with the young man wanting to pursue something that's a little different than what they've had. I don't mind something like what we're going to talk about later with Damezi, you know, after 2 years figuring out that things just weren't going in a direction. And then there's, you know, no anger. Appreciate Damezi giving Indiana a chance, appreciating Damezi and the coaching staff being honest and having a real tough conversation that coaches have to have sometimes with players about their role, and then honor those decisions. I'd rather a young man make a decision like Damezi than some of these guys that transfer out, graduate transfers and stuff, trying to boost their own stock or whatever. I think this was a real difficult decision. We'll talk about it a lot more in detail, but I think people have the right to go where they want to go, and then they have a right to change their mind. I think that's part of what makes our country great, and in this virus time, I'm going to applaud the young man and thank him, and we move on. But there's recruiting news and everything, so now's the time in this off season. It's going to look a lot different, but let's keep up to date on as much as we possibly can, and it generally works itself out over time.
And to my right, straight out of the chat mob, is our own Chad, aka General Chadwick Schwarzkopf. Chad, what are your opening thoughts on the last week in IU basketball, or anything else you've got on your mind tonight?
Yeah, just chiming in, continuing on with what Coach said. He kind of teased. I had shared on my Twitter, and you can look me up at General Chadwick on Twitter, a petition that's going around to kind of bring more attention and awareness to youth sports out there. It's kind of something that's really struggling, as well as a lot of small businesses are right now, because a lot of these youth sports athletes, training facilities, gymnastics, cheerleading, soccer, basketball, all those types of things aren't going on right now. And there is still rent that's being due. Lenders are still asking for rent. They're still trying, a lot of them are still trying to pay their employees, doing a lot of things like that. So I shared earlier a petition, and I'll share it again so people can find it, to try to sign to just bring awareness to that and more attention. And as well as there's a lot of businesses that are struggling. The best thing to do in this is know that we will all come out, in the end, we will come out better, and we will come out stronger. And it's also kind of allowed a lot of us to connect to people that maybe we haven't connected to for a long time. Just this weekend, Zoom has become an incredible piece of software that a lot of us have used, both through our schooling and everything. But I challenge you to do kind of what I'm doing this weekend and connect with some people you haven't seen or talked to in a while. Set up a little hangout to hang out with them. I'm going to meet up with some old high school buddies tomorrow night. and then another night I'm going to be hanging out with some old college buddies. So it's really fun to be able to reconnect. There's people I haven't seen in years and talked to in years. And while it is tough to be inside and be bottled up, it's at least always try to look on the bright side, find something to make you laugh and make you smile, and we'll all get through this.
Yep, absolutely. I have found that since we use Zoom for the show, I've at least been well prepared when I have to get my kids signed on for things for you mentioned youth sports. They've both been doing, their soccer coach has been having them do some training stuff at home. So at least the show has well prepared me to do that. I also say that as somebody who forgot to go live with the right streaming thing when I interviewed Mike DeCourcy earlier in the week for Banner Monday. So maybe I haven't learned that much. Anyway, what we're going to talk about this week, we do have a few college basketball headlines. Again, things are a little sparse. Main topic of the show tonight will be, as Coach talked about, the news of Damezi Anderson entering the transfer portal. And then we'll hit your questions as usual coming up this week on Assembly Call Radio. Before we get to all that, a few quick announcements. I mentioned them off the top, but please continue to support our friends at Home Field. You can go to homefieldapparel.com and use the promo code Assembly20 to get 20% off your entire purchase. Talked about what Connor's doing for the folks at Banner Society, but Connor has also really stepped up to do the right thing by his employees as well, and has posted about that on their site. So if you've, I know they're working through orders because they're trying to maintain social distancing and not having as many people in the shop and all those kinds of things. So I know I've seen him out talking to thanking people for their patience and things like that. But it's well worth the wait. Very comfortable stuff. I've worn their stuff a few times this week while working from home, so super comfortable. So I encourage you to go out there and check out everything they've got. And then if you want to support a local food bank, those are obviously places who are being taxed pretty heavily, both with schools being out and with people losing jobs, being furloughed, different things like that. The strain on some of the food banks and food pantries is a real struggle out there. So if you want to look up a local food pantry in your area, you can go to foodpantries.org. That way, if there's one that you want to support locally, you can do that, or you can go to feedingamerica.org as a more national organization that will get the funds where they need to go. So if you're looking to do something good, be the light, as we talked about. Those are a couple ways to do it. There are a lot of other ways, so do that however you see fit. But we appreciate anything that you're doing out there for either any of the folks that we've mentioned or something that you found in your area. So, all right, few headlines here. It says Hoosier headlines, but this one is not really a Hoosier headline other than maybe Hoosiers are glad to see him gone. Matt Harms today picked BYU. He was down to BYU, Kentucky, and Texas Tech. And I know I've seen a few quotes from him seem like he maybe wanted to be, I don't want to say a focal point because I don't think it'll be a focal point of the offense at BYU, but I think maybe wanted to get a place where he could play a little more prominent role. That led to him going to BYU. Coach, any thoughts on that as the final destination for him in that sequence, or anything that you took away from some of the quotes that he mentioned in the aftermath of making that decision?
Yeah, I think this one was a surprise to a lot of people, including those people at Purdue. I think it just happened somewhat quickly from what I've gathered from people around here, because I live close to West Lafayette. But it does seem like he has been told that for his future, he needs to go and fill a different role than what he would have been, sharing time with Travion Williams or whatever that guy's name is, a post player, coming off the bench. But there's still some competition at BYU for that. There would have been at the other two destinations that he chose. I'm not sure this is a long-term great decision. Sometimes young people make some tough decisions. I understand graduate transfers from smaller division schools, smaller mid-majors that have a chance to go play at a bigger school and pursuing that. I have no issues with that, and I don't have issues mostly with graduate transfers. If you just run your course, you've done your coursework, you've graduated out of school and moved on. This one seems to be, all of a sudden 2 weeks. So I hope he made the right decision for himself. And I will say this: I've had the opportunity to be in the media room a few times up at Purdue with Delphi Bracketology, and Matt is an outstanding spokesperson. He speaks well. He's a great teammate. Despite what we think about him on the court, and we don't like him, so I have a little love-hate relationship. So I'm not real sad to see him leave the Big Ten as a basketball player for the team that I don't like to root for. But he is a pretty solid individual and has been impressive in person when you talk to him. So I hope he made the right decision, didn't make a rash decision. But I think it definitely impacts Purdue a little bit. They won't be as deep, so that's probably good news for our fans.
Yeah, Chad, thoughts? Any farewells that you wanna say to Harms here?
I don't know. It gave me shivers down my spine hearing Coach talk some positives about him, but I feel better now. Yeah, I mean, he'll do well there. I mean, they're a very boisterous, crazy fan base, very similar to what you run into when you're over there and playing at Purdue. So he'll get used to that, and they'll love his energy, they'll love his enthusiasm, his emotion, and all that. And farewell.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you looked at some of the other options, Kentucky certainly has a need based on how many guys are gone, but I think the option for him, the West Coast Conference is a far less physical league than what he'd be going up against inside against the SEC and the West Coast Conference, and that likely is the best thing for him. So I can see how that would influence the decision, but maybe I would have thought about Texas Tech if I was him, just with what they do defensively. I think he'd be a pretty good fit for what Chris Beard likes to do, but we'll see how it goes. A couple other things. Jared had this listed on here as Bob Knight called it. They had a clip of him in The Last Dance talking about Michael Jordan being the greatest basketball player he'd ever seen, and that was in 1984 in the Olympics before actually playing a game in the NBA. So not sure if you guys had thoughts on that. Chad, I'll throw this to you first. That or just any initial impressions of The Last Dance if you've watched it.
I'm about halfway through the first episode. It's cool to see, and being someone that I work in production and everything, and to have that gold mine of footage sitting around for so long to only now be used is amazing, and it's pretty incredible the access they were given and everything like that. I had the benefit of living in Charlotte. And I have actually, since again, I work in production, I have worked with him before. And it is true the way you hear a lot of people talk about him and say that he doesn't feel like he is a real man. And there's a few people, as the document says, that have that status or had that status when he started. It was Babe Ruth, it was and Muhammad Ali, and then he came in, and I would argue Tiger Woods is kind of along that same line where they just extend past being a normal person and almost don't seem real, seem fictitious. But it is cool to have Bobby Knight in there. That great clip, even if you haven't seen the Last Dance episode yet, you've all probably seen that Bobby Knight clip. It's been shared a lot since the Last Dance started. But yeah, it's cool to see that recognition for IU in there, and I can't wait to see the rest of the series.
Coach, how about you?
Well, I grew up in the Chicagoland area. I saw Jordan play 30, 40 times in Old Stadium, in United Stadium, in the playoffs, out of the playoffs when he was a rookie. And it brings back a lot of positive memories of some of the guys that I used to hang out with and make trips into Chicago. But I'll turn it to an Indiana thing. One, the thing that Knight and Jordan have in common is that mental toughness, that I'm going to kick your rear end attitude. And the thing I will say is that sometimes that turns people off because people see your heroes and that you want them to be all nice and 24 hours a day. You're going to see Jordan not being nice. And the reason Jordan's not going to be nice is because he doesn't want anyone messing around. He has goals. He has goals of winning. And when you're on Jordan's team, you're going to get the wrath of Jordan. When your best player is your hardest worker, he's going to rip people in practice. Now, he's going to rip Jerry Krause. And so I've seen a lot of talk about how they didn't treat Jerry Krause right. When you have a championship person, they're not going to be nice. Now, that doesn't excuse what Bob Knight ended up doing to get in trouble, and sometimes your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. It gets you in trouble a little bit. But you have to be nasty to be a top-notch program. You have to have a level of just borderline, not break the rules, not being too dirty, but you got to just go out, and you're going to see that in this documentary. And that ultimately is what we all want here at Indiana. We want that kind of program where we're just going to knock you in the mouth, and then we're going to knock you in the mouth again, and then we're going to stand over you, and we're going to talk about it. We're not going to pop the collar. We're not going to fake hustle, but we're going to talk to you a little bit while we're going down the floor, and we're going to bark at you in practice and in the locker room. If you're not playing well, I expect someone in that Indiana locker room to get into someone and not be nice. And that a player-led program, whether it's professional, college, or high school, is much better than a coach-led program because the locker room's taken care of. And you will see Jordan takes care of his locker room. I love the Olympic thing when they beat up Tony Kukoc. You're going to come play for the Bulls. Pippen and I are going to beat you up, and you're going to know who the boss is. I mean, that's the way. That's competition at its best. and you're going to see that in this 10-part documentary. So that's a little bit about the Bulls, but it's a little bit about where we need to take the Indiana program and have that chip back on our shoulder. Where you come into Assembly Hall, you're going to go out limping.
Yeah, it was funny. I thought of you during watching the show, just about, we joke with you about how much you say toughness about different guys and things like that. But boy, yeah, just watching, some of that footage, and even Jordan came out at the beginning, before it even aired, and it's like, people are going to may not think highly of me after some of the stuff that comes out. And I think you've heard a lot of those stories. This puts a little bit of video to it, but man, just even some of the parts they've already shown where he was just getting on guys, just could not stand to lose, didn't understand why anybody else would be able to tolerate losing in any way, shape, or form. And so it's been a fun watch so far for me. And then other quick one, the Hoosier Hysterics guys teased that they had interviewed Archie Miller this week. So definitely curious to see what how that went, and if he opens up a little bit on there. I think that's one of the things. He's been pretty guarded, I think, in a lot of ways, and I think that's part of his personality. I think it's part of the gig, being the head coach. So I'm really curious to hear that when it comes out, just as to what they talk about and what they can, what kind of stuff they can pull out of him. So should be a fun one to listen to. I've been catching up on some of their other recent ones while I've been working here at the house. So we'll look forward to that in the coming weeks. But with that, we'll go to break, and coming up, we're going to analyze the news of the day, which is Damezi Anderson announcing his intention to transfer from Indiana. What does that mean for IU, and what does it mean for Damezi? We'll break it all down next. Stick with us. Totally just stopped that instead of paused it. Well, that's going to be fun for Jared to have to figure out. Crap.
Good luck, buddy.
No, you just send him 2 files.
Yeah, I think he can
merge it together.
He can splice it together better than I can. Yeah. Well, messed up something different today, so that's important. Well, welcome everybody in the chat mob and joining us tonight for the I'm checking in how the draft's going. My brother-in-law and my nephew got me into something of trying to predict the picks. I was trying to see how I was doing. Not terrible.
I opened up my FanDuel account or FanDuel app since first time in March.
Yeah.
Nothing like wagering on the draft picks. What a sad life I live. Down in wagering on draft picks.
You can bet on the what is it, the Tiger and Phil game coming up, or and who else was playing in that? Was it there were 2 comedians or actors or something?
Now, before everyone gives me that don't lose your house and all that gambling stuff, I have $1 and $2 bets. That's how competitive I am. I just make $1, and I keep track of them. I check the scores. Like, I just hate to lose it. I hate to lose at Yahtzee. That's why my wife asked me to play. I've stopped playing because she just kicks my butt. But I'm just competitive. I do $1. I got like 5 $1 bets on the draft tonight, and I'm anxious to see if I can win.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, so now I got to keep track of the length of this. All right, 21:44. Oh boy. All right. So yeah, we'll talk Damezi. Coach, you're a Bears fan, right? Football wise?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yep.
But they do not have any picks in the first round, right?
No, they have 2 in the second round.
Okay.
I was asked to be on a new podcast up in the Chicago area a couple weeks. Right at the week that everything shut down. And these guys have their own radio network, and they have shows on every day for the Bears. It's called the Bears Bar Room. And growing up near Chicago, man, it's just brought me back to home. And, man, those guys go after each other. They talk about busting each other's you-know-what, man. It's just total Chicago. You either love that attitude or don't love that attitude. I just tune in just to see them go after each other. But they're good guys up there. Shy fans in the stands, and Fat Mike out of Chicago, and they had Ditka on the radio show the other day. They interviewed Ditka, and
oh, nice.
So so I've been getting back into the Bears a lot more than normal here in Central Indiana.
What about you, Chad? Where's your NFL allegiance, or do you have one?
It's I've been waning on the NFL, but it splits between the Colts. I grew up in Indiana, and then now living in Charlotte. Since I've worked with a lot of the Panthers guys, I'll cheer for them.
Yeah. What do they? They took Derek Brown, defensive tackle, at 7. Do they have? What are they doing at? Who'd they get at quarterback?
No idea. I've not looked up on it. I'm not up on it.
I feel like I should know. Oh, they signed Bridgewater. That's who they signed. That's right. Or at least I remembered before I had to look it up. But anyway, all right. Yeah, Eagles pick at 21. Everything says wide receiver, so we should be, which they need badly. All right. I'll do Damezi here. I'll try not to end the recording this time, but I make promises in no way, shape, or form on that. So yeah, we'll kind of get into. I'll just talk through some of it the way that he's got it written in the run sheet, and then we can go whatever direction we feel like. But we went like 21-ish minutes in the first segment, so we got some time. We can go through this. I will start us up here in a second.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
And welcome back to the Assembly Call. You can find all of our content at our website, assemblycall.com. And if you ever want to join the chat mob during our unedited live broadcast or watch those replays and see all the in-between segment banter, then check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. I'm Andy Bonhams here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and chat mob Chad Schwarzkopf. I see Jared left the other names in here just to see if I would botch it, if I would Ron Burgundy it, but I did not, so good for me. All right, so guys, the big news of today and really the week from an IU perspective is Damezi Anderson announcing that he was going to transfer from Indiana today. I don't know that this comes as a huge shock to any of us. I think there'd been some rumblings of that, and I think even just looking at what happened to his playing time over the latter part of the season, I don't think that part of it is a complete shock. So we'll kind of look at this from a couple angles in terms of, what does it mean for IU? What does it mean for Damezi? So, Coach, I'll throw this to you first. What impact do you really see this having on the roster as it's currently constructed?
I don't think it has much of an impact going into next year. I honestly, you don't know where the rookies Geronimo and Leo and Galloway quite fit in compared to Damezi, but you would probably guess that there is a conversation that he was going to be 11, 12, or 13 again as a junior with at least one or two of those freshmen just taking some minutes because it's Mr. Basketball and some of the things that they do well, at least allegedly do well, whether they can do it at the college level or not, might be things that Damezi struggled with. So it just seems to me that this was an honest, probably an honest conversation between Coach and Damezi on what, his role would have been. And they just decided to go a different way. And I think but I don't think it impacts Indiana win-loss because I'm not sure – unless he made a big jump, and then without all the work going on right now and having to do things virtually, I'm not sure that he would have made that leap on his own without learning some of the offense and defensive things that I think that the concepts that he needed to do. As a player, I think he was okay skill-wise, but it was understanding defense, understanding shot selection, those things that are done more in a 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4 setting in a summer that he really needed to gain on, in my opinion. So not much effect at all, in my opinion. I do wish him well, though.
Yeah, I think we kind of knew coming into it. He going into last season, we heard in interviews from previous seniors that they were most impressed with what he was going to be able to do this coming year or last season. And we saw a little bit in the non-conference, but that was against lesser opponents. And then from there, it just kind of broke down. So obviously in practice, some stuff is clicking and he is showing some skill to a degree. Obviously where it's lacking the most is on the actual court and in actual game time situations. And unfortunately, the way the roster is now, like Coach just kind of said, there's too many people in line in front of him for him to get enough time that he needs to raise that level in game time minutes. And I would, again, who knows what the guys coming in are going to do, but their skill set and where they were in high school might be slightly on a higher level than Damezi was in high school. So yes, he's had some time in the program, but it was going to be pretty close or even with some of those guys coming in. So it makes sense that he makes the move that he does. And we might see some very good things from him when he does find that right team and that right fit, and he does get that play time. We'll see him move up from there, and that crazy unorthodox shot will start sliding some balls through the hoop.
Yeah, I think I saw it looked like Dustin DePirac had talked to him and said, just what you guys did, that it was really trying to find a place where he could get consistent playing time. And I think when you looked at who left the roster from IU this year, the fact that, the Devontae and Duran graduates, that didn't clear up. Those guys were not the ones blocking him getting on the floor more than he was. So I think it's, that's why I guess I wasn't surprised by it. And I don't know that most IU fans would have been, as you look through it that way. So that was there. The next question becomes what to do with that scholarship. And you've got, in a somewhat odd situation, you could technically have two if Lander is able to reclassify, which sounds like, based on some of the different things the NCAA is going to have to do with people not being able to take ACT, SAT, ACT type tests, maybe easier for guys to reclassify if they want to. So that maybe only leaves one. But Coach, what do you think the prudent thing to do is with that scholarship, whether that's a grad transfer or a regular transfer, whether that's just to bank it because you're not really in a great spot to go and be able to really evaluate anybody right now. Put yourself in Archie's shoes and what would you do with that scholarship?
Well, it's interesting because one personally, I'm not a big grad transfer in unless it's just a dominant. And if it was a dominant person, they'd probably stay where they were at or go pro. I think you do a grad transfer if you have a hole in your offense or your lineup. But technically, and I hope there's a change in the starting lineup, but technically all 5 starters are coming back. And then you have guys like Race and Jerome and Armand that have played and played well. So that now you're at 8, and you got 3 guys coming in that they do need some minutes, regardless. Maybe a lot of minutes, maybe some minutes, but you do need to get the 3, Leo and Galloway and Geronimo, some minutes in their freshman year, especially early in the season. So I would not go a grad transfer. And I'm really starting to going to start looking at other schools, what they do with their 13 scholarships. I'm not sure you can get 13 4-star and 5-star guys on a roster and keep people happy and not have just a crazy revolving door at the transfer level. I'm wondering if, what the right number is. I don't have the answer. And then you fill that 12th and 13th with like some 3-star local guys that might blossom as juniors and sophomores into, that key 7th or 8th guy that are just glad to be at IU, that would have gone somewhere else, that don't mind coming in, practicing hard and getting very few minutes, but maybe their junior and senior year. I think the days of filling with the best 5-star, 4-star just creates locker room issues, because I think you play your dudes, guys, and I like an 8-man rotation with the 9th guy, and that with 11 guys, 12 guys, that's still 2 or 3 guys that aren't playing a lot, and that's just, the game's different now. So that's my big question, but I would not do anything with it unless you had someone that could come in and want a red shirt would be nice. To fill that spot, or where you're at in the next year's class. I got Wesley and Kaufman and those guys. Do you need a spot freed up for that? But I wouldn't do anything with it other than have the reclassify.
I think you definitely, for me, I would bank it, especially with the 2021 class that's coming in. The only way I use that is if you have a Matt Roth, ready to hop in that can shoot the 3 at 50+% or very close to it, and come in with 1 year left and already has the experience, already has the groundwork. Just looking for that business MBA and come in, grad transfer, knock down 3s when we need
like
it.
Zizlov.
Yeah,
Zizlov, he had 2 years to do it, but
Yeah, I'd like one for less though, because again, that 2021 class is so stacked and everything. I would push it a lot more should Lander not be able to reclassify. Then it kind of gets a little sketchy. Maybe you want to look for a point guard that has a year or two left or so. But I think we can almost guarantee that Lander's coming the way, like Coach said, things are shaping up. And in that case, again, bank it unless you got a guy that is Reggie Miller, Matt Roth, Jordan Halls that can nail threes like it's nothing.
Yeah, I think that.
And I'm at a tough time. Wanting to win now, and what that roster looks like. And yet, I think Armand Franklin needs minutes next year. I'm going to think Leo needs minutes next year. I think Galloway needs minutes. Why? Because in order to get old and stay old, the guy's got to have minutes. And you can practice all you want, but you need game time. And I like those guys, so let's play those guys as opposed to a 1 year. If we have those 2 scholarships, though, I would be more open to a point guard coming in to give Finney some rest. Chad, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, I think a lot of it would hinge on Lander. If you think he's going to be able to reclass, I don't know. I think at best you met you. This year, but the guy who's only got one year left and trying to.
Losing Andy, breaking up a little bit on there. Coach chiming in, obviously, in the next kind of point, if we could bring it back to Damezi and everything.
To make that work with him. Point. You're able to see it from Damezi's standpoint. You're able to see it make sense, and
We're hang with us. We're trying to get Andy's Wi-Fi situation back in. We've lost Andy's audio there for a second, but it's just interesting. What to do nowadays with that roster with the 11th and 12th and 13th
from
spot. And keep people and keep people happy. And then it goes back to what do you want to see on the court? What kind of rotation? I really think Indiana struggled when they played 11 at the beginning of the year, and they played everyone in the first half. And I think Indiana got better in the second half when he limited the rotation. Your thoughts, Chad?
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, we touted that and we were excited for that going into the season, of the depth that we had, and being able to almost do the Kentucky line changes with our team. But it was it proved to be better once we had a rhythm. Some guys found some chemistry. We had the right guys coming off the bench. We got a little aggravated with it, obviously, when guys were starting that we didn't think should have, and Archie got a little pig-headed about his starting lineups. But I think definitely, especially in the way you see college basketball headed now, with players of higher caliber playing on teams and multiple of them, you're seeing. It'd be interesting to find stats and see if you could see throughout the years, but it feels like player minutes on an individual basis have gone up considerably as the years have gone, whereas you might have minutes more spread out amongst those 10 to 12 players. I think now you are seeing more teams where you see 7, 8, 9 players only seeing the minutes on the court, and the way you want to take risks on players that you're recruiting and everything. You don't want to scare guys away from coming to your program by having too deep of a roster. It's a tough balance to have in this day of age as a coach.
Yeah, you talk about minutes played. You look at there are 8 solid guys coming back right now, and how are you going to deliver those minutes? And Devontae Green's minutes, obviously, and Duran's minutes. Devontae has the most minutes, and then Duran had some minutes back. But it'll be interesting to see how you do that with the 12 guys, assuming there is a 12-man roster. last year. How do you break that up enough to win first and develop players second? So while we're taking over here, Chad and I are taking over. I got the recording going myself here, and I got the soundboard up. So when we break for the second break, maybe I can figure that in here a little bit tonight. But we also wanted to talk a little bit about Damezi. Chad, your thoughts? Where's he going to end up, and at what level do you think that he will go and have a solid career? Do you think he's going to want to go somewhere right away where he can play? And I think that's what NAIA, you could go do that, or if you want to go to a Division I, you're going to have to sit out a year. What level do you see, and how successful will he be in your opinion?
Well, the transfer portal is all up in the air right now. Obviously, NCAA is trying to figure out how they're going to assess those rules. And I think it is in a degree to his benefit with having to deal with the coronavirus and everything like that. I believe the NCAA will be a little bit more favorable to guys wanting to transfer and what they're going to do with their eligibility and where they're going to be able to go to. That being said, Damezi, he's a high offensive player. He struggles on the defense. While this past year we did see his defense improve, I think NIA is not a bad choice for him. We'll definitely see some good things there. But I mean, you get some lower level D1 schools. A MAC school, maybe you could maybe see some time, but specific teams without knowing too much about them and what they're looking for and what they're trying to fill in. I couldn't say specific teams he's going to, but he could definitely find something to do and put out there. And I mean, hopefully it's something that we can watch and see and support him to continuing on, because again, he's a kid that has loved this program and he has loved IU. He loves the teammates. He loves what he's had to do. Again, sounds like it's been a pretty recent, within this past month, decision that he has made. I mean, we had a couple weeks ago where his coach, high school coach, said that he was committed and going to stay in here and everything like that. And obviously, like you said, maybe Coach Miller had a talk with him. He stated in that Dustin interview that he did that he was talking to some family members and it was weighing in with them. And he wasn't sure where he wants to go to have some success. And so we'll see what he goes. Where do you think? Where do you see him fitting in, Coach?
I think he can play at a mid-major D1 in the MAC. I think possibly Missouri Valley type stuff at the high end. But moving from high school and AAU ball to college is a different beast, and some people can do it and move in quickly, as we saw with TJD, and others cannot. And even a guy like Romeo the year before, he was so dominant on the high school and AAU level. When it come into the Big Ten level, there were some things that he had difficulty understanding, and he's still learning now as you move in from college to the NBA. That's a big jump, and there's learning curves at every level. And so Damezi was obviously a man among boys in high school, where the game came real easy to him and he had the ability to score and use his length. And the game was just too fast for him, it seemed, when I saw him play. And I obviously we didn't see him practice, but getting lost defensively, offensively, not understanding where to go at times. You could just see that he was trying. The thing I will commend Damezi is I think he tried. I think he played hard, but there is a level of IQ and understanding that has to be there for a Big Ten basketball player. And I don't think it was because Damezi wasn't trying.
His attitude was always great.
Yeah, and it even was when he wasn't playing down the stretch. He was up on the bench, and so I really think this was a tough decision for him, probably a tough decision for Archie to come to this decision, because I think, he said, I never thought I'd be in this situation, because he set high goals for himself. And so I think he needs to get to a place where his athleticism can take over a little bit when the understanding or the speed of the conference is just a little bit below where the Big Ten is, and he'll find a good niche and have a couple good years after he transfers. So I think this is ultimately in his best decision to play basketball, and I think it's a good decision, because you don't have to worry about a young man who is a good young man not getting playing time. As good as kids can be, it's always tough. to sit there and practice and not get in, and that can always be an issue in the locker room. So I see him at one step below the Big Ten, maybe 2 steps below, and maybe even a smaller conference. Can he play at East Tennessee State, a good program? Can he go play at Mercer, some of those schools that have had success? But I think he that level he would be really, really good. So, that's where I see.
Andy, do you want to try, see if we can hear you? Where do you think you see Damezi going and playing?
I don't know. Well, who knows if this works? That was
we got you.
Computer was lighting up like a Christmas tree with pop-ups. It was really exciting. I would see. Hopefully, I don't reiterate what you guys just said, but I think some kind of more true, kind of more top end mid-major type school. I know Jared had some notes in the chat with you, or in the run sheet that showed those were teams he played well against. I think he just, against the caliber of competition that he was facing in the Big Ten or would face in another major league, I just think he's going to struggle to create his own shot in that scenario. And he didn't display well enough that he would be super successful as a spot up shooter. So he was just in a difficult spot when you get to that point. But I think, what you guys said earlier, just about how well he was spoken of by some of the older guys who left last year and those kinds of things. I think that speaks well to his work ethic and desire to get better. And, he thanked the academic advisors in his goodbye thing and, for kind of seeing him as more than a basketball player. So I think he's got a good head on his shoulders, and I hope that he is able to, difficult now to really assess and take visits and do those kinds of things, but hopefully he's able to, get some of those visits in and be able to make a good decision where he'll be able to make the most of the transfer situation and feel good about his decision, get the playing time that he wants, and be in good shape from there.
Yeah. And it's interesting in this time when there's no, you can't go visit. It's all going to be done virtually and everything. You wonder, you feel for these kids even in the NBA draft that are deciding to test the waters in the NBA draft. It's going to be a very unique situation in how do you know for sure. And I don't know if you know for sure. You're just going to have to go on a best feel with that. I think that has some implication, guys, for us recruiting wise too, with some players that are trying to hold out for even bigger offers, but they can't be seen in AAU and they can't go to campus. So it's just going to be a different beast. And I just wish Damezi a whole lot of, luck in finding the right place, and he deserves it.
Yep, I would agree. I do think it's, and even as we're talking about, I don't know how much of what I said even was heard, but trying to figure out what to do with other scholarship, like how much can you really evaluate anybody with all this going on? I think it's difficult for both the players and the schools to try to get the right fit, and you hope that it doesn't result in some kind of abnormal amount of transfers or different things like that, just because because of what you're just not able to make as informed of a decision as you would normally be able to, which is unfortunate, but hopefully he's able to make a good decision. So, all right, we'll give this a shot. I'll see if I can close out of this segment and then see if the next one can start without a complete disaster. Let's see what happens. So with that, we'll move to our third segment. We'll answer your questions there. We've got a few good ones. Have expectations for next season changed at all with all the recent player movement? And a random but fun hypothetical. Stick with us. Next on the Assembly Call. Well, yeah, I don't know what that was, but it was like popping stuff up all over the place. So I think it didn't. At least I could get to enough to make Coach the co-host, so it wouldn't close out the whole Zoom. So
yeah, you just started to break up immediately.
Well, and it was I think it was because my audio stuff, I kept having these messages like this, your speaker, your microphone has changed, back, has changed back. And then I got behind that. So I don't even know if it was the Wi-Fi as much as it was the stuff like toggling on and off, but
we started to talk over you and then you'd come back in like, oh, okay. Is it? No, he's not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Chad and I had the big eyes. We're like,
I know. Okay, I saw you, and then I was like, you clearly can't hear me at this point, because then I started getting these other error messages. So the fun part is I have no idea how long that segment was.
I had
Coach started recording.
Minutes. I had about 9.5 minutes. I'll send that to Jared tonight.
Well, he may have to, because I think I had part of it before it stopped.
He can slice them two together. When you
Did you
right before one of us starts talking and then cut in the other one.
Was your computer still recording?
It stopped. So I have something that's 13 minutes and 54 seconds, but there's probably a little bit of overlap there. So I can send them. So we'll have to kind of, I guess if anything, we go long and it gets cut off on the radio instead of not doing enough time. So if we did, all right, so now I got to do math. This is terrible.
I'd imagine with our 9 minutes, I can check for sure. When I started,
because we got 52 minutes for radio, right?
Yeah,
I feel like. So I got 21:44 for the first one. Then I got 13:54, but
I started recording at 9:18, and we had been talking for a couple minutes. So there's probably a couple minutes you were off that weren't recorded. So they'll have to maybe splice that together. So I had 9:18 right there, and I ended when you signed off. So I kept it going when you were going.
So you're thinking
if you had 13 or 14, I imagine you had maybe a minute to 2 minutes max where it goes breaking in and out that we'll want to edit. So
yeah, and
that's 21 minutes, that segment, 21.
Yeah, we'll assume. Yeah, because you think there's probably some overlap between what I had at the end and when you started, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, I didn't. First of all, I called up all the music things and that because I just started taking over. And then the last thing I thought about was recording.
Okay.
So Chad and I talked for about a couple minutes, and then I hit record. So I don't know exactly where.
Okay. Well, he can pull it off the Zoom recording too. I'll try to, if you send him what you have, I'll send him what I have. Yeah. I'll record this last segment, and he may just need to take he may just need to take the middle part off of the Zoom so that there's nothing missing. Yeah. But I'm just trying to get a rough gauge of.
Yeah, I'd say 21 minutes to the first segment. Okay.
Yeah, because if I add together what you and I had, that's closer to 23.
Yep.
And
he'll probably chop out a minute to 2 minutes of it, probably.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. All right, well.
Hey, you're batting 1,000 this week, dude.
I'm really doing a good job. This is one of those where you just do a bad enough job and then nobody ever asks you to do it again. It's not really my plan, but.
I'm going to get ticked at you now because he's going to ask me to host.
I know. Well, I'm just,
Got the PC, so I can't do it.
I'm going to start screwing up.
There you go. Yeah, I wish I was doing it on purpose and that I wasn't just like the perfect storm of stuff going on.
Richie has it great in the chat mob. We can blame it on Ryan. Like he was trying to chime in between picks, and he just threw the whole thing.
He drunk dialed in like he did that one time.
Exactly. It's all Ryan's fault.
Nice. Yeah, I was trying to remember if I could just figure out how far into it we were when we started the segment, so I could ballpark it. Because I just don't want to end up shorting what we need. Because if you think you missed a couple minutes, now I might have some time that was when I was, so maybe it all evens out, and what you have is pretty good. I'm going to assume that was about 24 minutes, and we'll make it work from there. All right, so that would make it 45, 44. And it says 4, 16, 616.
That's it. Math, everyone, for in the chat mob. So that's a social. Have a drink.
Yeah, he won't have any problem thinking about the Zoom recording because he'll just end it when you started getting choppy, and he'll go back to where we were.
Back up when we started going. Yeah.
He'll put one of his little memos over the top. There were some technical difficulties. We picked back up where.
Yeah. So if anything, I'm going to err on the side of. This says we got about 5 minutes and 40 seconds, but if we go a little bit long, it's probably not the end of the world. And if there's a little bit extra as opposed to not enough, that's probably better. All right. Questions. So I kind of teased. I'm going to move the second question up, or the third question up to second, since those are the ones that I teased in the thing. And then, all right. Now this says 49:24, but I swore that we had 52 minutes for the radio show. Is that wrong? No, it's 50. I'm an idiot. All right. Continuing this week's.
I thought it was 54, but I've seen 54, 52.
I thought it was 50. Well, this says 50 in here, and I'm looking back to the last couple times I would have recorded it, and it was right about 50. So we have even less time than I thought we did. So that means we have 3 minutes and 40 seconds. But I think we got a little bit more than that. So we'll hit at least these. We'll hit these first few questions, and then.
Yeah, and he could always go to the post if we have questions afterwards. He might want to answer a couple questions or talk about something afterwards. He can go back and splice some of that if he needed it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's start this and see if this can not be a colossal disaster over the last couple minutes. All right. All right. I'll start here in a second.
This is Nick Zeisloft. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call.
And welcome back to the Assembly Call. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and Chat Mob Chad Schwarzkopf. And remember, you need to be subscribed to our email newsletter. We send out a weekly IU news roundup, even during the offseason. And after every game, we send out a detailed postgame analysis. Just text IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com. That's IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com. It's now time for our mailbag. As always, all questions were submitted via our private IU basketball discussion community, which you can find out more about at assemblycall.com/community. And the first question comes from Justin. What are reasonable expectations for next season? I'm hoping for a top 4 finish in the Big Ten. Is this expecting too much? Coach, what do you think about top 4 finish in the Big Ten next season?
No, Justin, I would say it's not bad to try to expect a top 4. That would be something that is the next step. But the Big Ten, as tough as it was, you had teams like, Michigan and Rutgers who had really, good years, be 8 and 9 seeds in the Big Ten tournament. If the Big Ten is as tough, and a lot of the preseason projections say that it's looking like, again, another 9 teams in, So I think they're going to be in that discussion for a top 4. But I think anywhere from 4 to 7 would be acceptable depending on competition and scheduling and stuff.
Yeah, I'm right there with Coach. I agree. I mean, there's not a lot that many teams are losing this year going into next year, and those that are kind of adding some other stuff that might help them out, or current talent is getting better. So I think that's kind of the good window. Again, a strong Big Ten is a good thing for IU. So while 4 would be fantastic and everything like that, I'm not going to be terribly disappointed if it lands more in the 6-7, because that just means the Big Ten's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
Quickly, Andy.
Go ahead.
Bracketology-wise, too, Michigan and Ohio State were, 7 and 8 in the Big Ten, but they were going to be 6 or 7 seeds. And I really think that's more where, if you're a 6 or 7 seed for Indiana, you're pushing the top 25. That's a nice spot for the 4th year, in my opinion.
And the place in the league gets difficult with the unbalanced schedules and different things like that. I think top 4 feels maybe slightly aggressive to me, but I think anywhere in the and maybe this is splitting hairs because I'm only going to give 1 or 2 spots different, but I think in the 5-6 range, maybe as you look at who's coming back, but you've still got a lot of draft decisions that could impact those. I mean, Illinois could be swung pretty wildly in a couple different directions, depending upon what Kofi Coburn and Io end up doing. So who knows? I don't think that's expecting too much though. I think everybody's expecting some kind of trajectory and a build up to that. So I don't know that it's outlandish. It might be a little bit higher than what I might expect, but I think still reasonable. All right. So this one, this just says, you told me to ask this again last week. So I don't know who this is from, but sorry about that. The Assembly Call crew, Jared, Andy, Ryan, Coach, and 1 current IU player plays pickup against a hybrid Crimson Cast Hoosier Hysterics team plus TJD. Which other current player are you picking to round out your team, and who wins? So Chad, I'll throw this one to you first. Who do you think we would need to help us in this scenario?
Well, first I got to say, where do I come in? I guess I'm kind of the Will Sheehy of the Assembly Call, coming off the bench, ready to chime in, as I kind of always do for this show.
I have a feeling a number of starters are ripe for injury, so you should probably be at the ready.
I guess we do. We've got the depth. We've got the depth that they don't have. I don't know. I mean, throwing in Trace Jackson Davis on their team, that's tough. You've got to have something that can neutralize him. They've got maybe a little bit more. They're a little more wiry, but I think the assembly call squad is going to be a little bit more physical of a team. So maybe I keep that physicality and maybe give him Joey. Joey has maybe a little insight against Trace Jackson Davis playing against him in practices. So yeah, I think that's where I would go with it.
Coach, what about you? What do we need?
We need race. We need race for two reasons. One, because TJD, you got to have someone. I could try, but I would totally get blown away by TJD. I tried to sit on that left shoulder. He just jumped right over me, dunk, and call me Baldy on the way back down the court. So I don't want none of that. We need race in there. And then because we just really need to have Scott, pee his pants, and we'll just send Race running right at him, and then he'll freak out like he does on Crimson Cast when he gets all crazy, and then the game would be over. It would be ours. So Race will have to be the guy.
Yeah, those are the two guys I was down to for the same reasons. Just you need somebody to be able to help you guard Trace. I'm a little bit concerned that Ryan would be too distracted if Race was on the team, where he might be kind of like running up to him, trying to do a lot of hugging of him during the game, which could be problematic. So that leads me
Throw
to
his shot off.
Maybe side with Chad to go with Joey. He's actually worked out with Trace a lot, so maybe he's in the good position. I don't know. I think Race would have been my first pick, but the Ryan angle kind of threw me a little bit. So, all right.
Just gotta watch out because those Hoosier hysterics like to take those charges. So they're the Wisconsin players on the team. So watch those guys.
True. That's definitely the MO. All right. So one last quick one will fit in here. Given current roster and commitments, what types of players does IU need to recruit for 2021 and 2022? Not names per se, rather position, skill sets, potential leave early stars versus development players, et cetera. So Coach, I'll throw that one to you first.
We talk about it for years. You can never get enough shooting. And I think you also need to keep pursuing bigs. We have the Dunsham kid coming, but we have a couple bigs leaving, probably TJD and Joey, and then Race will be a senior. So you're going to have to go after bigs. And I really would like to start seeing bigs that can stretch the floor. A lot of bigs, 4s and 5s. You look at Wisconsin, 4s and 5s, they can hit the 3. Let's be that multiple dimensional type of team, but we need shooting at every position. But bigs, 4s and 5s, and then obviously the guards that can fill it up.
Chad, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to echo the same, especially with the emphasis on the bigs, like you said. And I'll even throw a name, Trey Kaufman. We got to get him. TJD is going to be gone. Get him to fill in there. You have him for possibly those 2 years that he stated. And then shooting, I think some guys that we have might develop, but those big guys are my priority in that.
Yeah, I would echo what you guys said. So in the interest of time, we'll leave it at that. But agreed, those are some things that you'd like to see, and with the shooting, would like to see how that might evolve, what the team's able to do offensively as you go through that way. So with that, we'll close up this week's episode of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live, join us at assemblycall.com on Thursday nights for the live broadcast of our Assembly Call radio recording. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for producing most of the music you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again next Thursday night. Until then, keep your elbows in and your eyes on the rim, and go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
All right. Well, that went much better. Now we just don't know whether we did too much or too little. So that'll be fun. All right. So the only other question that we had was one from Jim Tom Hoosier. In your opinion, what do the next 8 months look like for IU athletics? There's a question we probably could do a whole podcast on, although we based largely on speculation. So we'll save the speculation for AC After Dark. Apparently, I mean, what do you guys think about that? It's pretty tough to say at this point, but any initial thoughts based on things you've heard, things you believe?
One, I'll throw out the positive right away. I think big crowds are always going to be the last thing that come back in society, and that just scares me for football and even basketball to some extent. Because I just believe this thing is real, and the confidence of people getting out will be the big thing. We all want to get out, but do you really have the confidence to go, sit in Section 11 with, 200 people around you with the variety of struggle that this thing is? But I also believe that our country is great. We have, great resources. We have great people that I think the first thing would be a remedy, something that is used on a regular basis in the hospital to treat the very serious cases when people get to the hospital that will relax a lot of us, whether it's a certain drug or a certain treatment. I believe in America to come up with that in the next 2 or 3 months. I think that would be a big step to getting things back to normal, because this thing's not going away. It's just a matter of how we're going to handle it and treat it so that we don't have a big rush anymore until we get a vaccine, and that vaccine is a while back. But I don't want sports to be gone until we get a vaccine, because you're looking at fall of 2021 before things get going, and that's just going to be tough for a lot of us. But I just believe in America, and I believe in its ingenuity to solve major problems. And I know there's some time constraints with regulations and testing controls and all, make sure it doesn't have side effects and all those things. But I just believe that, delay is where I think we'll be at. I think there'll be a delayed football season and maybe a delayed basketball season, but I think sports come back in 2020 in some way. Maybe towards the end of November, December is more likely when there's a handle on stuff. And I hope that's not wishful thinking. I hope I'm not looking through it in rose-colored glasses. I want everyone to be healthy, not just myself. And I'd go to a sporting event tomorrow if it opened up and I knew I could be safe. So, but that's what I think. And I think we're in good hands. I think the Dolson choice is really important now, that it is just a handover of someone who's been in there, knows the coaches, knows the people, knows the lay of the land, not coming in trying to figure out new things in order to survive this. But there are going to be some tough decisions, some cuts budget-wise, some salary cuts, some personnel cuts inside the athletic department and the university probably. So it's going to look different. But I'm going to hang in there and have a lot of faith in America, have a lot of faith in Scott Dolson and Indiana to do the right things, and then we'll get through this eventually.
I feel like college sports in particular, even more so than pros, when you're a college athlete, you're very contained within your team. You're very contained within the environment that you're in. I think we will see some of those sports come back. Maybe not with audiences. It's going to be a very surreal experience, because we may see some football games happen before then with empty stadiums, definitely. And I think since the teams stay together and you'll see testing broadening out amongst them and staying within their own communities and everything like that, kind of self-quarantining in a way amongst their own teams and with each other. Obviously, that's a little bit more difficult with football because you've got a lot more players and a lot more people to organize. It's a little simpler when it comes to basketball. With just common sense, everyday hygiene and measures that we are currently doing now can be applied on a scale to some athletics, and we will continue to learn new things. And as time goes on, and like you said, we're ingenuity that this country has and everything. We'll get it figured out, and we'll look back at it as hopefully just a dark time, and that we got closer and got through it.
One thing I'm looking at,
yeah.
fellas, I'm sorry, Andy. One thing I'm looking at is these contained spaces, the meatpacking place, the jails, the cruise ships. How do those things turn it around and not spread so fast? Because, Andy will attest to this with his wife. We go to school and we have 400, 500 kids that are just germ-centered carriers every year, and you get the flu and things like that, and you want them to be safe. And the people who are teaching them are older people. Jen, not so much as Brian, but you do worry about that being in an enclosed places. Your factories, your Subarus, your here, the factories in our location that have had to shut down. How can they get back to work safe in an enclosed environment? And when you see how that is handled, that's going to be the ticket for sports with fans. I do see a lot of chatter in the chat mob about no fans. I think that's ultimately what we'll do early. But, man, that's not sports either. It's better than nothing. to watch on TV. But it's going to be really interesting to me. All the words and all the protests and all the stuff that's going on is noise. I'm watching how do contained places deal with this, because that's going to be how work comes back, and that's going to be how entertainment comes back, and how fast, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think some of that stuff is just, and every job is different. I mean, I've been able to work from home. It's definitely expedited the path to allowing people to work from home. But I also think that a lot of people have been able to see that it's, for as much as some employers kind of feared what it would be, and are people going to be still doing what they're supposed to be doing, I think in some places it's calmed some of those fears to a point where I don't know that there's a need to rush back to office buildings and different stuff like that. Schools is a little bit harder. I mean, as you said, there's a lot of different factors there, and I think, you know, a lot of teachers would probably attest to, you know, they're a lot more effective when they can be in front of somebody and have those face-to-face connections and talk through that. And there's an element to be had with that. Not that you can't teach remotely, but I think it's a different animal. So yeah, it's just trying to figure out how you do that, how you get testing to a point where you're able to feel comfortable with knowing what's going on, and then you can take action appropriately. I think now you don't have that, so you're kind of making every decision blind, and you've got to factor it in for, well, you don't have to, based on how some people are handling it. But your inclination is to plan for the worst case scenario and assume that everything you're doing needs to be really ratcheted up. So I think that becomes difficult. And yeah, anything, as you look at these phased rollouts, I mean, anything like sports, concerts, different stuff like that is going to get pushed toward the bottom of the list, because it's really hard to do. And I think it was Kyle Neddenrip who had the story about one of the sectionals in Indianapolis, and that, you know, people gotten affected there. I mean, you see, again, people don't know for sure that that's where they contracted it, because it was a bunch of people who had also been around different things like that. But you can see in some of these scenarios, even in smaller venues than what we'd be talking about, having some of these other basketball games and other things, you know, it doesn't take too many stories like that before you feel like, yeah, I better, you know, there's a liability component to the people opening that, to the school, to the, you know, to the team, to all those kinds of things that you've got to figure out. So yeah, I would think whatever it's going to be, even if things are delayed a little bit, I think the number of fans is going to be extremely limited, if not zero, at the beginning. And that'll be a different experience, although probably a lot of us clamoring for sports to watch would probably take it as opposed to nothing. But yeah, it's going to make for some surreal things to watch, and maybe a good control test of what home field advantage really means, and different things like that.
I think with no fans, it gives a good morale boost for everyone, though, too. Just to kind of see the sports happening, even again, like with no fans, is going to be a good thing for people to see and to feel, have that sense of normalcy for a moment.
You know, Chad, you bring up a great point, because for sports, for us, it is our outlet. And some people may find that silly, and it's not as important as other things, but some people have working on their cars in their garages. They can still do that. Some people have hunting and some things in gardening that they do and they're really into. Some people have painting and art, but we have sports, and it is. And we are a society that loves sports, and it is an outlet, and it has been difficult. And at first I was a little bit like, oh, come on, don't feel so sorry for yourself. It's just sports. But no, that any outlet that people have is important to get away from the natural stresses of your day, and it is important. And we lost a Hall of Fame basketball coach to COVID today, Ed Siegel, or yesterday, who coached at Pike. I had the opportunity to do some of my pre-teaching service hours with him 27 years ago, and had conversations with him. He's very well known, the athletic director at North Central that Andy was referring to, and that. But there's 5 people who died from attending that one sectional, and 12 other people that I know. I know those coaches. I know the videographer was his son played AAU with mine that does some video work for athletes, and he was mentioned in that article. My brother-in-law's athletic director was in ICU with the ventilator. You know, there was a high school coach at Indianapolis Heron that was in his 40s. I believe, and came down with no previous symptoms. I mean, you're talking a 53-year-old guy that's in gyms all the time and in schools and that it starts hitting home. And boy, I want this thing to turn around tomorrow in a heartbeat. But, I've been very, very, very careful for me personally, but not to be selfish. I have an 80-some-year-old mom. I haven't been able to see her, and I want to go see her. And I don't want to carry it to anybody else. So it is one of the toughest things I've had to deal with. But I do believe that we will get somewhere. I tell you what, that June 11th golf, if someone on television doesn't open up television with that opening tee box at 6:45 in the morning, I don't care if it's the worst PGA golfer in the world, I am tuning in for 18 hours, and I'm betting the crap out of that event.
You got Brady or Peyton?
Yeah, that one too, but I'm talking about the PGA opens up June 11th, the actual PGA.
Yeah, that's right. They
Tour
said
with
they
no
were going
fans.
to.
So, and look at the Last Dance, 6-some million people or whatever the rating, probably more than that, but the ratings that they had, and then the draft, people are just thirsty for it. So it'll be interesting to see how we get there.
Yep. So, well, hopefully sooner than later.
Virtual
sure.
tailgating in the fall is going to suck.
Yes, that's true. That's
better
true.
than none. I mean,
yeah, I would agree. Oh, well. All right. Anything else you guys got? I think we hit all the questions. I was texting Jared about the audio issues, so I think he's going to be able to pull the other audio off of YouTube, and I sent him the good segments for 1 and 3 audio files. So, Coach, I don't know that you need to send him yours. I'll just save it for the time being in case he would need it. But
I have it if he needs it.
I'll let him know.
I have it.
I will definitely do that. So, all right. Well, everybody enjoy the rest of their evening, the rest of the draft, and we'll be back.
It's fun. Some would say.
Some would say good chunks of it were fun, but nah.
Don't be plopping those drops of yourself, man. It's bad enough when.
No, that wasn't me. That was Chad. Chad has
that. That was Chad.
That was
Chad
not me. I have it refreshed with hardly any of the new ones, and so I don't even have them. But I definitely wouldn't be playing one of myself, so don't worry about that.
I'll chase her all the way from Assembly Hall to Switch Yard. Oh, jeez.
I gotta be able to get him back. None of us have it to get him back.
This is true. Well, Chad, thank you very much for hopping and joining us. We set you up on the night when there's almost nothing to talk about. Had it not been for the transfer. So always a fun time to come on when it's like, oh yeah, why don't you come on with us and talk about, well, not really sure.
The other times that Jared has had me host was you guys were at the Purdue game and Knight decided to come back. So I spent a lot of that game drafting my banner moment because it needed a little bit more weight. And then you gave me, I had senior night as well, which obviously needs a little bit more weight. So that's all right. I've been thrown in the deep end a little bit by him.
Well, so then by comparison, this was a walk in the park. So yeah, perfect. All right, cool. All right. Thanks everybody.
Thanks guys.
Thanks for tuning in. Everybody stay safe and we'll
tell
talk next
Jen
week.
to hang in there with the teaching stuff.
Yeah, we'll do. You do the same. It's definitely been a challenge. She's really embraced it, but I think there's parts of it that she really finds frustrating and just trying to get a hold of some of the kids. But I think when she's actually like interacting with the kids, it's super cool just to hear her up the stairs from afar. So
that's the number one thing you said it well is like, I can handle this and I can figure out how to get assignments and do that, but it's just not the same. And I hope the kids have a better appreciation. The teachers have a better appreciation, parents, all of that about how it is the day-to-day motivation, butt kicking, all the things that we do that really matters more so than the assignments. So hopefully that comes out. But I do appreciate her with the little ones, man. It's okay with my high school kids. I pop into a Zoom meeting. Hey, what are you doing? Get your work in. Don't be stupid. See it. But the elementary kids need a little more loving and hugging and all of that. And that's
a little bit. And I think, what she's trying to do is she doesn't like when everybody says I'm homeschooling, I'm doing whatever. She goes, we should still be providing the instruction. There shouldn't be, if they're watching the videos that she's, doing of herself and then, the work that goes along with it, if they do all that stuff in the right order, it should hopefully not put a lot of burden on the parents. Right. I think that's the challenge with ones that age. It's like, you don't want the parent to feel like they truly have to teach but they are less self-sufficient. So trying to figure out what the appropriate level of detail is and, trying to, trying to give that to them so that it's not falling back on the parents. But she's got some parents that are still working and doing different stuff. And so she's having some of the meetings with the kids who can't get together until the evening and whatever else. So just proving further that she's a much better person than I am. And not that there needed to be any proof of that, but
No.
So she's a good one.
All
right. Well, you guys take care and
take care, Chad.
All right. Night, guys. Thank you.
All right. See you guys.